Okay, welcome to video 27. This is the practice test for Walkthrough. This test deals with arguing with sources. So it's about ad hominem fallacies on the one hand, but also arguments from authority and how to handle them properly on another hand. And then on the third hand, just the general role of the relationship between the speaker and the argument given, and when you need to pay attention to the speaker and their person, and when you want to pay attention to the argument that they are giving. So let's just start, and what I'll do for some of these is flip back and show you the PowerPoint slides that go with this, go with each of them. So, question 1, what is the best definition of ad hominem tu quo que? Our options are a form of ad hominem argument that involves straightforward name-calling and insults, an argument which attacks the character or motive of the speaker when in a situation where it is not relevant, an ad hominem attack that accuses, there should be a noun there, a speaker of being a hypocrite or having the same flaws they are criticizing in situations where this is not relevant. An argument that claims a position is true because it's been asserted by someone in a position to know. And an ad hominem attack that attacks someone's motives for giving an argument. Well, we can rule out the fourth option, because that is simply the definition of an argument from authority. So we know that's not right. Well, let's go back and look at the PowerPoint slide where we discussed varieties of ad hominems. Okay, you can see here there were three kinds of ad hominems: abusive, circumstantial, and tu quo que. Abusive was name-calling. Circumstantial was attacking the motives. And tu quo que was saying, defending yourself by saying the other person has the same problem. Now, none of these quite match the wording in our original slide exactly, but if we go back and look, it's pretty clear which one we need to be, which one is the correct answer. Right? So a form of ad hominem that involves name calling and insults. So answer number 1 was ad hominem abusive. It's not that. An argument where one attacks the character or motives of a speaker where it is not relevant. Actually, that is the definition of an ad hominem in general, right? And we're only looking for a kind of ad hominem. So it's not going to be that. An ad hominem that accuses the person of being a hypocrite or of having the same flaws they are criticizing in a situation where they are not relevant. Well, that looks like the right one, right? Let's just go back here. It was defending yourself by saying someone else has the same problem, and then accusing someone of being a hypocrite. Yeah, so that's the one we want right there. Okay, which of the following are true of arguments from authority? Arguments from authority are always fallacious because, no, we know that's not true because I emphasized that, in fact, most of what we believe on the basis of authority. Anytime an authority figure gives an argument, that counts as an argument from authority. All right, now this is a tricky one because there's a bit of an ambiguity in this phrase, argument from authority. You might want to say, yeah, if the authority figure gives it, it's an argument from authority. But that, remember, was not the definition. The definition was that an argument from authority claims a proposition is true because it has been asserted by a person in a position to know. So you have to say this is true because the authority figure said it. Now, an authority figure could give an argument that says, trust me, I'm an authority. That would be an argument from authority in the sense of critical thinking. But the authority figure might say, don't take my word for it. Look at the evidence yourself. In which case, it's not an argument from authority in the critical thinking sense. Also, someone who's not an authority figure can give an argument from authority by citing what some other authority figure said, right? So if I say you should get vaccinated because Anthony Fauci says you should, that's an argument from authority, even though I am not the relevant authority figure. And then eyewitness testimony counts as an argument from authority. All right. So we want the three questions that are given that you should ask whenever an argument from authority is given. This is the basic list. There were two lists I talked about, a basic list and a longer list. The longer list is used for things like expert authority or more in-depth situations. But in general, you should always ask, is the person in a position to know? That is, are they a relevant expert? Were they, if it's an eyewitness kind of situation, were they in a position to see what they said they saw? Is the person biased? And is the person backed up by other authorities? Okay, so those are your three basic questions. You can also think of those as warrants that have to be added to any argument from authority. All right. Next up, we've got a dialogue. Let's take a look at this dialogue. The dialogue is going to probably contain a couple different arguments. Let's see what's going on here. Someone is advocating for issue 3, which was a while back, but it was going to legalize marijuana in Ohio. So the advocate says, legalizing and taxing marijuana has raised huge amount of money in Colorado and hasn't created any serious problems for the state. We should try the same thing in Ohio by voting for issue 3. So that looks like a straightforward argument for issue 3. The opponent then turns around and says, you're just saying that because you work for companies that will be granted a legal monopoly over marijuana growing by issue 3, right? And this was the problem with the initial the legislation back then. Even if you wanted backed marijuana legalization, it was weird to grant a monopoly to just a small number of companies. In any case, let's look at the questions. Which of the following best represents the conclusion given by the argument for the issue 3 advocate? The conclusion is you should vote for issue 3, right? This is 2 premises, and the conclusion is at the end. Which is the best describes the reasoning of the issue 3 opponent, the other side. He is challenging the strength of the reasoning. He is committing an ad hominem circumstantial. He is challenging the validity of the premises. Ooh, actually, we can rule that one out because we know validity is a property of inferences, not premises. He's challenging the truth of one of the premises. He's committing the ad hominem tu quo que. So he's actually committing the ad hominem circumstantial, right? He's saying he's attacking the motives of the person giving the argument. He's saying you're only saying that because, but that's not relevant in this circumstance because the person is not saying, trust me, I'm an expert. He's looking at the example of Colorado. So in this situation, you want to avoid making things personal. Don't look at the person giving the argument. Look at the argument given. There's no reason to make the argument personal, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to look at the evidence. All right. Legalizing and taxing marijuana has raised a huge amounts of money for the state of Colorado. That is one of the premises for the issue 3 supporter. And then suppose the issue 3 opponent had said, actually, marijuana legislation has caused a lot of problems for Colorado. So instead of committing the ad hominem the ad hominem circumstantial fallacy, he actually looked at the evidence. Well, so it's not going to be either of these two. What he is going to be doing is he's going to be challenging the truth of one of the premises of the argument. So that's that statement there. All right, so let's take a look at the next set of arguments. So then now we've got another dialogue. Faculty members at a faculty meeting, and they're talking about preventing student loan fraud, which is something that some people at colleges are very worried about, that people are just going to take out student loans and run off with the money and abuse it. So one faculty member says, you know, these students, when they get their loan checks, they just go straight to the bookstore and buy an iPod and a bunch of fancy gear. Faculty member 2, who might be the kind of person who asks for premises and critical thinking in faculty meetings, do you have any evidence of that? Just ask anyone who works in the bookstore. So here there's an argument, but it's kind of spread out, right? Because faculty member 1 gives a premise, makes a statement, and then when asked for evidence, that's when he gives his premises. So this is going to be the conclusion, and this is going to be the premise. So we want something that matches that. And it looks like the lines aren't showing up here. There should be lines between premise and conclusion because it's standard form. I'll see if I can fix that. But in any case, so the conclusion is going to be that when students get loan checks, they just buy fancy gear, right? So that's this one here. Students just use loan money to buy iPods and fancy gear. This question's kind of old. No one buys iPods anymore. And the premise is any employee at the bookstore will tell you this. So that means that this is a kind of argument from authority. Anyone at the bookstore will tell you this, therefore it's true. So it is an argument from the authority of a bookstore employee. And then finally, evaluate this, since this is a short answer. And I think this is actually a terrible argument. I generally find that when someone gives an argument from authority that begins, just ask anyone, it's not very good, because it's sort of a vague authority. It's more like everyone knows this, that sort of thing. But let's talk about this. We want to look at let's look at the exact question. Assess the truth of the reasons, the strength of the reasoning, and any warrants that should be added to it. So 1, the truth of the reasons. The truth of the reasons is unknown. I haven't asked any bookstore employees. The strength of the reasoning is weak, actually, because bookstore employees aren't really in a position to know. And we'll look at the next thing to see this. You might think they are, but really they're not looking at the total spending or when loan checks come in. They just know that they saw someone come by and buy some electronics. They don't know anything about whether or not that person recently got their loan checks. They're not following any patterns, right? They just know what happens to be on their shift. So because they aren't really in a position to know. So 3, warrants. The warrants are, is the person in a position to know? Are they biased? And is it confirmed by other authorities? We'll put the position to know stuff up here because they aren't in a position to know. They aren't looking at data over a long period of time. And they don't know when people get their checks. They just see people buying electronics. So the first warrant fails. See above. The second warrant is probably okay. I can't think of a reason why they would be biased. The third warrant has not been shown. So, I mean, maybe there are other people who would confirm this, maybe not. We just haven't seen the evidence yet. Okay, and when I hit submit, I discover a glitch. So, it's supposed to automatically grade 8 out of 10 questions, and it should have given me an 80. Because I got 8 out of 10 questions. I got the 8 questions that are automatically graded correct. But if you scroll down here, you'll discover as it is now, that one of the questions comes out wrong. Where'd it go? Here. See, it's the correct answer. You can tell it's in green, but it's still giving me 0 points. So by the time this video is posted, hopefully I will have already corrected this mistake. In the meantime, know that the correct answer to 6 is that this is a premise, and if it's still giving you 0 points, then, well, don't worry because it's just the practice test, but let me know so I can try and fix that.